The problem with this country is plutocracy. The problem is that we are like, you know, we have this tiny percentage of the population that collects all the gains from the economy, and that these people also now essentially have this enormous power over our politics as well through campaign donations. I mean, Congress downtown here in Washington D.C., that's who they listen to, is the rich people. They don't give a damn about people like you and me. You know, it's just about them. Not only do they take everything away, you know, the 1%, they've, you know, in the last couple of years, all of the gains since the stock market crashed have gone to these small handful of people, but they control the politics. And that's the outrage today. It's not big government. Government has been hacked down and defunded and, you know, torn apart in 100 different ways. And what we've got instead is the old problem from before the era of big government. Okay, we got the problem of the 1920s back now. We got the problem of the turn of the century. I mean, turn of the last century is back with us now. And that's the problem of plutocracy, of totally unaccountable big money, of capitalism just running wild. That's the problem. And this is happening all over America, and it's happening because these culture wars, these values issues, have replaced economic issues. So you have people who their economic interests are obviously on the left, but they're voting for candidates on the right. We don't think of economic issues as political issues anymore. That's not what politics is about. Politics is not about, you know, Wall Street and the minimum wage and, you know, all of these issues that our ancestors thought politics were about. You go back and look at, you know, Franklin Roosevelt or Harry Truman or whatever, you know, the things that they used to argue about back then are not what we argue about today. And we have trouble even understanding that those things are political. You know, that's economics. We think of economics as something separate. That's something you leave up to experts. What's political is when we, you know, we yell about Hollywood, we complain about the theory of evolution, or, you know, the secularization of our culture, you know, all of these things that are, that make people really mad. You know, but they can't do anything about, you know, the culture wars. This is the definition of the culture wars. The financial crisis is a complicated thing. Okay, now say you're an average American. I mean, what's a credit default swap? Well, nobody knows, you know, and this is the thing that's wrecking the economy. It's so much easier to imagine it as in terms of simple ideology. You know, the market isn't free enough, you know, to just project the views that you've always had onto this situation. No. We were handing out loans. The government was handing out loans to poor people. It was making banks, you know, these fantasy things that people came up with, and then insisted that those were true. And you have people like Glenn Beck and Dick Armey and the Tea Party movement that is encouraging this and saying, yeah, that's right. The main problem is that we haven't allowed enough economic freedom. It's not that we deregulated banks and we desupervised and there was nobody watching these guys and the entire mortgage industry had no regulators. That wasn't it at all. The problem is that we made any effort to regulate. And if we had just not made any effort at all, then everything would have been great, you know, because it's the free market utopia. And that's a very comforting thing for certain people to believe. All of this anger floating around in America, and it's all expressed in strange ways, like your people talking about the wedding cake and, you know, the gay conspiracy or whatever it is, you know, this fantasy that they have. And all of these fantasies, if you look at them really closely, if you look at them with the microscope, they're class fantasies. They're always about an elite, an educated elite persecuting average working class people, okay? And look, working class people really are having a hard time in this country right now. You know, no doubt about it. The thing is that they're expressing their anger in all of these strange cultural ways, and not in the most direct way, not in the way that would actually get them something and change their situation for the better, but, you know, ways that are irrelevant and even harmful, you know, like picking on gay people. You know, that's ridiculous. But going after Wall Street bankers, that would help. And so there you go. We fight over things that are symbolic, you know, are symbolic of a class conflict, but we don't fight over the actual class conflict. That's who we are.